Lukas Podolski is a legendary player at FC Köln, but how would he do as manager? Still scoring goals for fun in the Polish league, we've retired Podolski to bring an end to his playing career and start his managerial journey. To reflect some realism, I've replicated Köln's current season results up to January, where we sit mid-table in the Bundesliga and finish third place in our Conference League group. As one might expect from early elimination from European competitions, squad morale has taken a hit, but players are still developing. The 18.5 million remaining in our transfer budget is largely a result of two key player departures. Promising midfielder Salih Özcan and veteran goalscorer Anthony Modeste both joining Borussia Dortmund. Given our lack of striker options, I turned towards the loan list and was surprised to see Christian Kouame. With potential dating back to as high as 89 in FIFA 19, we'll be looking to return that world-class potential via good performances. It'll be a short-term loan with a future fee of 10 million attached. I really don't see a downside to this deal because if Kouame impresses, that fee might be a lot less than his future evaluation. But we will see one departure in January with Dimitris Limnios requesting a transfer and joining Leeds United for 4 million. As for our youth scouting, we don't have the best scout to begin with, but Arthur Becker will be staying in Germany for the remainder of the season, searching for any type of player. And we've got a few different options for our youth academy. I think the player with the most potential is Jose Cuevas. The striker from Paraguay only has a 45 rating, but potential at 76 to 94 might be good enough to become part of our first team, especially if he can keep progressing like this. All in all, our performance was fairly consistent for the remainder of this season. A 10th place finish in the Bundesliga and an early exit from all other competitions. Leipzig will win the league title with Leverkusen, Bayern, and Dortmund rounding out the Champions League spots. I think if we could turn some of those draws into wins, we could very likely see a rise in our league standing. But it's Bochum and Schalke to see relegation to Bundesliga 2, Werder Bremen competing in the promotion playoff final. Hamburg and Nuremberg will see the jump to Germany's top flight, and Arminia Bielefeld, despite reaching the promotion playoff final, will be unable to achieve promotion as Werder Bremen keep their spot in the Bundesliga. Some surprise finalists in the DFB Pokal, considering Bochum finished last in the league, but Hertha Berlin win the competition to achieve Europa League next year. Spurs with a massive victory over Real Madrid in the Champions League final, Milan defeating Benfica in the Europa League, and West Ham will get a win in the Conference League against Braga. The last time I did a rebuild with Köln in 2019, I remember how good Florian Kainz was. That is very much the same here as he leads the club in goals scored. Kouame, a pretty good output from 17 matches, a goal from pretty much every other game. And with his loan set to expire, I went ahead and paid that 10 million fee. This is what his new contract will look like. Dejan Ljubicic is a versatile player able to feature out wide or at the center of the park. He will lead us in assists, but we will promote one other player from our youth academy. Really excited about Vincent Meyer, a 64 rated German left winger with potential at 80 to 94. Some of these board objectives were outside of our control. Hopefully season 2 will see our manager rating rise. This will be our first full season in charge at Köln, and I plan on taking this squad to the next level with both incoming arrivals and departures. If you're enjoying the content so far, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Not too much leeway given via the board, as we still have to focus heavily on our finances, while still playing well enough in the league to qualify for a European competition. However, the 30+ million in our transfer budget is more than welcomed. I think this is a fairly unrealistic move from the game, having Timo Horn request a transfer. I know he's no longer the starter here, but he's been at Köln since his youth academy days. Regardless, we'll move forward with his request and let him leave to Monaco for 5.5 million. Another big transfer out as Sakiri leaves to Villarreal on a 25 million fee. It's rumored that he'll be leaving Köln on a free transfer next summer. Mark Uth returning to the Eredivisie as he joins up with Feyenoord on a 6 million transfer. Adamian also with the Eredivisie move as he signs for PSV. And another striker leaving with Anderson signing for Galatasaray. Our final outgoing transfer this window will be Pedersen leaving for Bournemouth on a 1.75 million move. I'm just now realizing this with the edit, but our first incoming transfer will be another fullback named Pedersen. Marcos Pedersen has fallen in the Feyenoord depth chart. However, he's a player with a lot of potential, and I think a move to the Bundesliga would be quite realistic for him. And he's not going to be all that expensive. A 12.5 million move, which was a few million more than his current evaluation. Of course, relegated clubs are going to be one of the more popular ones that we sign players from. Masovic has been a regular starter for Bochum in the Bundesliga the last 2 seasons. Still relatively young, he can hopefully grow into a future first team player, and at worst, he can give us some rotation in our defense as he signs for 3.5 million. Again, a pretty sound deal and not much more than the player's evaluation. A few years back, Leonard Grill was one of the best young goalkeeper prospects in Germany. He played for my local club Kaiserslautern in the 3rd Bundesliga at the time, and Leverkusen thought he was good enough to spend 2 million on a transfer. That's not something you see often for the lower leagues of Germany, but with him not really featuring for Leverkusen and getting loaned out a lot, I think a 1.5 million deal is just fine as he takes over the backup goalkeeper spot, and this will be our first move this window where the player had his contract expiring so we could pick him up on the cheap. Free agents are also one of the best ways to go when you need to be financially savvy in your career modes, and I found a couple of good ones throughout this rebuild. Nemanja Radonjic has Bundesliga experience, having played for last season's DFB Pokal winners Hertha Berlin, and with Denmark being the most popular foreign nationality at Köln, I was very happy to see a player with a real face scan, Mads Bistrup, moved from RB Leipzig's youth academy to Brentford. He's currently on loan at one of Denmark's most exciting clubs, Nordsjælland, but with his contract coming to an end and a whole lot of potential ahead of him, I'm very excited what he can do for us. Of course, we'll continue to focus on our youth academy with Becker staying in Germany for the remainder of the season, but we'll add 2 5-star scouts. Our first one being from Germany, he'll be scouting Poland, searching for a technically gifted player, and also a scout from Lithuania. With Köln having youth academy exchanges in a number of countries, including South Korea, we'll be looking at least one player from each country that has a partnership with Köln. But our Bundesliga season will start against one of the newly promoted sides, Nuremberg, and although there has been some turnover in the squad, I'm excited about what we can do. This will be an especially crucial season for longtime player Jonas Hector. At Köln since 2012, he'll be retiring at the end of the season. But with European dreams in the back of our mind, we will open up our Bundesliga campaign with a 3-1 victory. And a few months further into our simulation, we're about to play a fixture against Bayern. Mind you, we've been doing quite well in the table. A win could move us into the top 6 of the league, but we received a manager offer from Everton, who are obviously struggling a bit in the Premier League right now. And while this Everton squad has made some interesting transfers, we'll still be going strong at Köln and seeing what we can achieve. As we get into January 2024, we'll see if our decision to stay loyal to Köln has paid off. And that it has. We have moved up a spot since we last checked, up to 6th place, and in the hunt for either Europa League or Conference League action next year. As this is a very young starting 11, most of our players continue to rise in their overall rating. And just like last year, things remained very consistent in the second half of the season. It's a 6th place finish and a 2nd round exit in the DFB Pokal. We'll take a look at the league standings, and the Bundesliga winners continue to be surprising. It's Wolfsburg that take the title this time around. What a 6th place finish means depends very heavily on who won the League Cup. And because both Bayern and Dortmund are automatically in the Champions League, that means we'll be put straight through to Europa League next year. Relegation spots this season going to Nuremberg and Hamburg, the 2 newly promoted sides, with Union Berlin participating in the promotion playoff final. Arminia Bielefeld winning Bundesliga 2, and Schalke returning to Germany's top flight. Bochum will also see a return as they defeat Union Berlin 3-0 in the relegation playoffs. Pretty good season for Bayern, but they lose in the Champions League final to Milan. Real Madrid with a surprise appearance in the Europa League, but they will defeat Porto 3-0 in the final. And Stade Rennais defeating Newcastle United 4-3 on penalties in the Conference League final. When I was doing my research for this rebuild, I saw a couple of comparisons between Jan Thielmann and Lukas Podolski, as both featured for Köln at a young age and were exciting prospects. Happy to see him leading the way in goals scored and also leading the charge in the assist category. As we report back on some of our youth academy promoted players, Cuevas saw a +9 in his overall to 59, and Meyer saw a +8, now up to 72 in his overall. We were successful in finding players from 2 out of the 3 countries that we scouted. Jonas Schroeder is a 65 rated German goalkeeper with a potential of 80 to 86, and Adrian Malinowski is a Polish center attacking mid, 63 rated with a potential of 79 to 94. Still looking to improve our manager rating in the future, but we've got European competitions to again look forward to next season. Season 3 ready to get underway. A couple of club legends having left the club last season, but a few new ones in the making. We have our first representative on international duty. It's Thielmann, now up to an 82 overall. And another rise in our transfer budget, closing in on that 60 million. We again need to retain some of that transfer budget. Look to finish in a Champions League spot in the Bundesliga, and for continental success, we've already done well by reaching the group stage. Achieving Europa League qualification unlocks some categories for potential transfers. I was surprised to see that Mauro Jr. has been a PSV player since 2017. Because we absolutely need a replacement for Hector, I felt like he would be a good signing and a somewhat similar kind of player in that he's versatile to play as either left back or right back, but can also go into the midfield. It was a 22.5 million fee to complete the move. He looked to have his contract expiring at season's end, so that'll be a great way to kick off the summer signings. Our next transfer is somewhat controversial because Julian Weigl is currently out on loan at Köln's rival club, Borussia Mönchengladbach, but it seems pretty set that he'll be making a permanent return back to the Bundesliga, as I don't see him being a part of Roger Schmidt's plans at Benfica. He will give us a nice upgrade in the midfield as we signed him for 17.5 million, another case where his contract was coming to an end. And also, if you make the position change to center defensive mid, that gives him a +2 in his ratings. So the fact that we signed him on such a small fee was incredible. Ever since Modest's departure, it seems like we've been lacking a target man striker. And with Jordan Pefok's great form in the Bundesliga, I felt like he would be the perfect representative for us, especially because they saw the drop to Bundesliga 2. One of the many players I was surprised not to see included in the US men's national team's roster at the 2022 World Cup. I am excited to see what the future looks like for him. We'll complete the move on a 13.1 million transfer that ended up being his release clause. It was the only way we could finalize the deal. But I would say this has been our best free agent signing yet. Andreas Scheldrup, another Nordsjælland talent and one of the highest potential players in career mode. I don't know how they possibly could have let his contract run out, but I was over the moon to make this signing happen. He'll be joining us as a rotational player that could very well break into the starting 11. As I was searching for other free agent options, I managed to find Podolski's regens, so apparently when you retire a player and have them become manager, their regen instantly becomes available. And because Schalke didn't pick up his contract for another year, I figure why not add in another attacking option for us moving forward. We will again see a few player departures, Duda joining Real Betis on a 6 million move. Dietz will be leaving for Cagliari on a 2 million transfer. Strauch to join Besiktas on a 1 million move. And Olsen making the transfer to the San Jose Earthquakes for 1 million. It's another season of scouting and things have not changed for Becker as he stays in Germany, but we will have 2 new countries, the first of which being Japan as we look for a technically gifted player, and also making the flight to North America as we search for a physically strong talent. But we've had good luck in our opening day matches. Another newly promoted side was Schalke to kick off the season, and the team is looking stronger and stronger. Of course, it was disappointing that we lost our opening match 1-0, but a lot of focus will be going on our Europa League group. I think it's one that we can advance out of as we have Montpellier, Vitoria SC, and Shamrock Rovers. Montpellier's best player being Shotar, a 79 rated player at 22 years old. Ibrahima Bamba, an Italian talent playing for Vitoria at a 73 overall, and Justin Farisai, a 61 rated Irish center midfielder, will feature for Shamrock Rovers. So a couple of new competitions to check on in January 2025. We'll start with the Bundesliga, and once again, we are more or less mid-table. For our Europa League group, we will finish second, a pretty good outing from both us and Montpellier on 15 points, but I believe they will get the advantage due to goal differential. We have seen some changes to our starting 11 as previewed earlier, Scheldrup fighting his way to that starting center attacking mid spot. And we'll have an extra match to play in the Europa League as we start in the preliminary round against Dynamo Kiev. They've got some high potential players. One we'll highlight today is Zabarnyi, a 78 rated defender. But it seems like their defense wasn't that great as we pick up 5 goals in the first leg and another winning result in the second leg, putting us 8-3 ahead on aggregate and matching up against a French opponent in Stade Rennais. One of the more random transfers I've seen in career mode with Toni Kroos signing for Stade Rennais, but we will pick up another good result in the opening fixture, 3-0, and a 2-2 draw in the second leg. Puts us through to the quarterfinals against Spurs. Champions League winners from Season 1, they've continued to improve their side, signing Fikayo Tomori, who's up to an 89 rating. We did manage a win in the opening fixture, but in the second leg, a 90th minute goal from Pellegrini will give Spurs the advantage on aggregate. So we'll see our season end in the Bundesliga rather than in the Europa League. Still an important fixture. We need to move up at least 1 spot to 7th if we want any hope of achieving European football next year. We'll also be paying attention to the Pokal fixture and rooting for Wolfsburg because they're likely the side to achieve Champions League. The Leverkusen are not going to be an easy opponent. They've kept their best talents like Florian Wirtz and added some other good players as well. Leverkusen going through their own form of a rebuild these days as Xabi Alonso is in charge. But we'll get into these highlights and create an opportunity right from the beginning off of a mistake from the Leverkusen keeper. We're going to pounce on it and give ourselves the advantage 31 minutes in. It is Ljubicic to give us that opening goal. Good defensive clearance initially, but it falls to Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who finds the equalizer before the halftime break. And all the action ended up being in the first half, so not exactly the result we wanted, but it might be enough as we add 1 point to our Bundesliga tally. We've had a lot of luck on our side in this rebuild so far, and that'll continue. We have seen that jump up to 7th place in the Bundesliga. Taking a look at results, it was actually Hoffenheim to see the drop down in an unlikely turn of events. Arminia Bielefeld and Schalke will be getting automatic relegation, with Werder Bremen again competing in the promotion playoff final. Hamburg once more seeing the jump up to the Bundesliga, and Heidenheim joining them. And Union Berlin will get the better of Werder Bremen in that relegation playoff. The winner of the Pokal didn't end up mattering too much to us, but we get the request we wanted as Wolfsburg were victorious over Dortmund. PSG defeating Liverpool in the Champions League final. Chelsea winning a rivalry match in the Europa League against Spurs 3-2. And Sevilla to defeat Lazio in the Conference League final. A big rise to Kouame's goal contribution here in Season 3. 28 from 46. We will take that as Thielmann continues his dominance, up +3 in his rating and 11 assists to add on top of that. We'll have one player with a contract coming to an end. It is Schindler, who's getting up in age. But for our Youth Academy talents, Malinowski is up +5 to a 68 overall. Schroeder up +6 to a 71. Cuevas slowing down in his growth, now only at a 63 rating. And Meyer going steady, up +5 to a 77 overall. 3 more Youth Academy players will be added to the mix. Russell Morgan is an American center attacking mid, already at an overall rating of 66, potential of 86 to 92. Kobayashi still not eligible for promotion to the senior team, but he is already a 62 rated right winger from Japan, 81 to 94 potential. And Koenig, a 60 rated center forward from Germany, 81 to 94 potential. Finally, our manager rating has seen a rise as we try to find some consistency with Köln. While it is slightly disappointing to drop down from Europa League to the Conference League, I think it's a more realistic competition for the squad that we currently have available. At the end of the day, we're looking to win titles, and that is reflected in our objectives. Still trying to finish in a Champions League spot in the Bundesliga and win the Conference League this time around. Not as much of a transfer budget, but I already like the quality we have in our team. I do think it is realistic for us to start reviewing offers for Thielmann. I was initially planning to let him leave on a big fee, but with a swap deal including Weston McKennie, I think you can argue some aspects of realism. Of course, a former Bundesliga player at Schalke 04. So these will be the term McKennie plus 25 million for Thielmann. There was also some Premier League interest for one of our center backs, Kylian, so he'll be joining Leicester City for 20 million. Radonjic hasn't exactly worked out as a free agent signing, so he'll be joining Fulham on a 10 million transfer fee. Schmidt joining Maritimo on a 1.75 million transfer. And the first Youth Academy player that we promoted, Cuevas, joining Konyaspor on a 1 million move. With a lot of departures due to consider, it's time to make some more arrivals. Maximilian Wober having just signed for Leeds United. I know it's going to be tricky to record these rebuilds, especially during the January transfer window, but he's quite a realistic signing for Bundesliga saves. He will fit right into the starting 11, joining on a 20 million fee, slightly more than his evaluation, but it's nice to have a left-footed center back. We've got another left-footed defensive option with Ari Mb. He was actually part of Köln on a loan basis during a loan spell from Bayern. It's another case where these high potential players do not have their contracts renewed, so we'll gladly pick them up. Finally, some more difficult opponents in our first month of Bundesliga action, but despite the departures, I like our chances. I feel like we have a very well-balanced team, and we'll also be able to see Ljubicic feature in technically his primary position at right mid. Defensively, it looks like we have things sorted as we secure a 1-0 win against Wolfsburg, but we'll turn our attention towards our Conference League group. We have PAOK, St. Gallen, and Antalyaspor to consider. PAOK known to develop some good talents like Solis a few years ago. I think St. Gallen's most well-known player is Sturgeon, but he's transferred to Barcelona in this save. And a player that was included in the US men's national team roster is Haji Wright. He's at a 73 overall at Antalyaspor. But we'll see how things are going January 2026, and we have finally seen a big jump up in our Bundesliga standings. third place and in the running for the league title. We also finished top of our conference league group, so we definitely have some competitions to consider here in the second half of the season. Squad is developing nicely. I think that addition of McKennie in the midfield has helped us out loads, and also one of our youth academy players, Meyer, breaking into the first team and growing at an exponential pace. We have our first player leaving on a pre-contract with Benno Schmitz joining Sevilla at season's end. But our first knockout stage matchup in the Conference League will be against AZ. They have surprisingly a good amount of high potential players despite consistently losing talents to other teams in Europe or the Eredivisie. But the Swedish winger Jesper Karlsson is up to an 83 overall. We still scored both goals in the first leg and saw a huge win in the second leg to put us up 6-0 on aggregate, matching against Marseille in the quarterfinals. We have seen some interesting transfers in this rebuild as Antoine Griezmann embarks on a new journey towards the latter stages of his career. He's at a 79 overall now, but defensively we are shutting out our opponents. A 3-0 win in the first leg and a 0-0 draw in the second leg means that we'll face Real Sociedad in the semifinals. This is a team that has stayed pretty consistent, and why not, considering how many good players they have. For the first time in a long time, we lose the opening fixture, but see a comeback in the second leg and advance 3-2 on aggregate, where we'll match Dortmund in the final of the Conference League. It is the last match we'll play this season. So reviewing results, Leverkusen now winning the league title. I think we've had a different league winner each and every season, but crucially, we finished third place, and for the relegation spots, it's Heidenheim and Hamburg to see the drop. Arminia Bielefeld and Werder Bremen seeing promotion to Bundesliga 2, and Bochum will keep their spots in Germany's top flight as they defeat Paderborn. It was a third round exit against our rivals Mönchengladbach in the Pokal, but it's Eintracht Frankfurt to defeat Bayern in the final 2-1. PSG repeating as Champions League winners, Juve to win the Europa League. But now it's time to decide the Conference League winner. Can we get the job done against Dortmund? If we don't count trophies from the second Bundesliga, it's been since the 80s since Köln last won a trophy, so we'll be looking to end that streak here in this Conference League final. Ready for action as Dortmund open up the highlights. It's going to be some great passing play to eventually work the ball over to Traore. Only took Dortmund 12 minutes to find the opener, but we will look to answer back. And again, it's off an opponent mistake. That was the case in the last gameplay match that we highlighted, and Kouame does well with his chance as he finds the leveler in the 26th minute. Corner kick chance in the 35th minute, and this is one of the many reasons I wanted to sign McKennie. I don't score from a lot of corners, but when you have Weston in the center of the box, he's got such great jumping ability, and he's such a presence that he was able to give us the lead, and we continue to build on that in the second half. It's McKennie again, really showing that he was worth it for the transfer, leading us to success. That's a Conference League title added to our trophy cabinet. I feel like the next logical step is trying to replicate that in the Champions League next year. All in all, a successful season balancing all competitions. As we take a look at the goals numbers, even distribution for goals scored across all players, Kwame still leading the way, and Sheldrup continues to impress since we signed him as a free agent. 17 assists from 47 appearances. We'll check on our array of Youth Academy players. Kobayashi up +5 without a loan spell, up to a 67 rating. Morgan went to Scotland for a loan spell, up +6 to a 72 overall. Koenig up +7 to a 67 rating. Malinowski up +4 to a 73. And finally, Schroeder up +3 to a 74. We've been achieving a lot of our manager objectives, but now it's time to compete against some of the best clubs in the world in the Champions League. Our biggest challenge so far has been whether the club is up to par with the competitions we're involved in. Finance is no longer a big priority for us, rather we're just looking to find success as we try to win the league title and reach the semi-final of the Champions League. Over 100 million to work with in our transfer budget for the first time in this rebuild. And we'll start by making a defensive upgrade. Mavropanos is one of many ex-Arsenal players that have thrived during his time away from the club. Usually I wouldn't take a player away from Dortmund, but because they are struggling in this rebuild, yet to win a league title, we're going to be making that charge with Mavropanos as he secures his signature for 35 million, which in my opinion is not a bad price for a player of his quality. Because Podolski was born in Poland and we've yet to have a Polish player really thrive for our team yet, I wanted to make a further signing with Kasper Kozlowski, the Brighton player, actually making the transfer move to Spurs, but I figure there's a number of options ahead of him at center attacking mids, so he's more likely to get play time for us and ultimately, we have just as much of a chance in the Champions League as I think Spurs do. It's still a big feat for a young player as he takes on the number 10 for us, 30 million, which was less than his evaluation of 35.5 million. Couple of seasons in and free agents have treated us well so far. That's going to continue with a Colombian goalkeeper, Kevin Mier. Köln actually have a history with Colombian goalkeepers. Farid Mondragon spending a number of seasons at the club. But another tough start to our Bundesliga journey. It's a match against Bayern at home. Mier taking over as our starting goalkeeper. I know it's a risk considering how consistent Schwebe has been, but we need to go with players with potential if we want to aim to win the lot. Our decision proving effective as we hold on to a clean sheet and secure a 1-0 victory against Bayern. Our Champions League group consisting of Atletico Madrid, Fiorentina, and FCSB. Pau Torres making the move within Spain to Atleti up to an 89 overall. Moukoko actually moving from Dortmund to Fiorentina, now up to an 84 rating. And Popescu staying at FCSB, now at an 81 overall. Will results stay consistent for us in January? Yes, they will. We are very much in the running for the Bundesliga title, just a few points behind Leipzig. But unfortunately, getting knocked out of our Champions League group, FCSB, the biggest surprise of the rebuild so far as they top the group. I'm not too unhappy about that though, because this team really screams out Europa League quality to me, and I think we have a much better chance of winning that competition. Schwebe going from one backup role for us to likely another backup role at Bayern as he leaves on a pre-contract. But getting into the preliminary rounds of the Europa League, we'll start against Rapid Wien. Some alright players for them as Querfeld is at a 73 rating at center back. But we'll get a 3-1 victory in the opening fixture, losing the second leg but still advancing on aggregate. Now facing Lyon in the round of 16. Ekitike with a really interesting career transferring from PSG to Lyon and now at an 85 rating. Lyon get the better of us in the opening fixture 2-1. And again, we bring things back in the second leg, forcing penalties, but losing 6-5 on penalty kicks. A disappointing season for European competitions, but we certainly have something to play for as we reach the final Bundesliga match day. We're on a bit of a winning streak, and we're equal on points with RB Leipzig. They have a 3-goal advantage on goal differential. We end up getting the job done ourselves, winning 3-2, courtesy of an 87th minute goal from Kwame. And to my surprise, we're going to see trophy celebrations at the end. Leipzig failing to win on their final match day, and that'll give us our first Bundesliga title in this rebuild. The defensive upgrades we made at the start of the season proving to pay off, as I think our biggest challenge was just balancing all the different competitions we were involved in. Taking a look at the league table, Leipzig ended up getting a draw on their final match day. Heartbreak for them, but elation for us. As for relegation, it's Werder Bremen to again see the drop along with Augsburg. Nuremberg returning to the Bundesliga with Hamburg, and Bochum will keep their spots as they defeat Paderborn in the promotion playoff final. Leverkusen getting a win against Dortmund in the Pokal, and for Champions League, it's Barcelona to defeat Manchester City in the final. Spurs winning the Europa League against Copenhagen. And for the Conference League, no teams that we matched up against, but Valencia defeat Trabzonspor. It's been a few seasons in a row that Kwame has been the top goal scorer. Really happy to see what he's contributed in this rebuild, as he was equal on goals with Christian Pulisic with one fewer match played in the Bundesliga. And for assists, it's Sheldrup, who had a fantastic season, 15 assists from 46. He was the sole leader in that category. To add on to that, Mier was tied for the most clean sheets, so we were just very consistent across the board. We'll look back on our youth academy players that are still at the club. Kobayashi up +5 to a 72, Morgan up +3 to a 75, Koenig up +5 to a 72, and Malinowski still growing +3 to a 76. Hard to believe that despite winning a Bundesliga title, our job is in risk, but hopefully we can improve this manager rating next year. There's still a few storylines I want to visit before this rebuild comes to an end. And of course, there are still a few more competitions that we can look to achieve. But first things first, improving this manager rating. It's not going to be easy because we have expectations to pretty much win the lot. Still over 100 million remaining in our transfer budget. And we get an interesting offer for Mauro Jr. It's Barcelona to come through with a 90.5 million offer. We're going to see that price rise all the way up to 100 million. And I wanted to free up those funds so that we could sign a former Köln Youth Academy player and someone who I'm happy to see back playing after his injury, Florian Wirtz. He has stayed in Germany for his entire career, now signing for Bayern in this rebuild, but he was widely considered to be one of the best midfielders to come out of Köln's Youth Academy in about 30 years. We of course had to pay the big bucks to complete this deal. 200 million is an absurd amount. Might might be the most I've spent in a rebuild this FIFA, but hopefully he'll be worth it. We do see a few more player departures. Bober joining Brighton on a 25.5 million deal. Schroeder, one of our Youth Academy goalkeepers, actually making the move to MLS. And Bistrup not really getting much play time, will be joining Hank for 15 million. Finally, Soldo, who hasn't featured yet, joined Celta Vigo on a 12 million fee. We do need to sign a left back replacement, and with Freiburg struggling in this save, we'll be signing our first French player of the video, Quentin Merlin. There were some rumors that he would join Bayern after following them on social media, but it's another move to a Bundesliga top club as he joins us for 45 million. Significantly more than his evaluation, but we needed a quality left back. So our season will start in the German Super Cup against Bayer Leverkusen. Wirtz's former club and the team he moved away from Köln to. But this is a team that can compete with the best. We've seen a massive upgrade for Sheldrup as he shifts over to left wing. And again, we're unsuccessful on penalties. We had a chance to bring things level with Wirtz and Lubicic, but we were unable to do so. So now we'll have to focus on the Bundesliga and of course the Champions League, where we'll match up against Juventus, Sporting, and Hajduk Split. A good opportunity to check on Thielmann as he's up to an 87 overall rating. Pedro Porro up to an 88 overall at Sporting, and Biuk at an 82 overall for Hajduk Split. Really looking forward to results here in January, and we're once again in the running for the Bundesliga, but Leverkusen appear to be the top team. And for the Champions League, we will finish first in our group. I think it was always going to be a challenge with Juventus and Sporting, but we're through to the knockout stages, which we could not say last year. Mir is developing really nicely, which I think can account for a lot of our success so far this season. And hopefully we get some good matchups like this in the round of 16 against Crystal Palace. They've retained a lot of their top talent, like Olise, who's at an 84 rating now. We do get a draw in the opening fixture, but a 1-0 win in the second leg puts us through to the quarterfinals against Real Madrid. They themselves have signed some talented players like Trent Alexander-Arnold, now up to an 89 rating. And Madrid were just too difficult for us to answer to. 3-1 in the first leg in their favor and a 2-2 draw in the second leg. It was just one of those years where we could not find the missing puzzle piece. A fourth place finish in the Bundesliga with Leipzig winning the league. A semifinals exit in the Pokal de Wolfsburg, who go on to lose against Bayern in the final. Of course, we were runners-up to Leverkusen in the German Super Cup. And that loss to Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinals saw them reach all the way to the last match, losing to Barcelona in El Clasico. But I think I'll be calling it here with our manager rating still in poor shape. If there are any other real players you'd like to see a manager career mode with, let me know down in the comments.